As the crisis escalates, hope for a swift and peaceful resolution to the conflict fade. But just what type of intervention is needed to bring this end to a standoff? For more on this, we're going now to Ivan Eland, director and senior fellow at the Center on Peace and Liberty at the Independent Institute. Thanks again for joining us, Ivan. First of all, I'd like to get your reaction to John Kerry's words, his comments, just within the hour on Ukraine.
Well, he's keeping it vague. You know, that's what diplomats do, so because they want to get the maximum effect. You know, have the sledgehammer hanging over. But it's not much of a sledgehammer, really, because the U.S. doesn't do a lot of trade with Russia. It does some, but the EU is really the big trader with Russia. And of course, trade is a mutually beneficial relationship. And so, of course, Russia has natural gas, oil, that sort of thing that flows to Western Europe, and Western Europe has a lot of investment in Russia. So the Europeans are not really all that enthusiastic about putting the sanctions on that the U.S. wants, the harsher sanctions. And of course, in an arena like this, multilateral sanctions are the best, because otherwise, if you put sanctions on, U.S. will just lose out to Europe with trade with Russia. So, but I think the Europeans are really balking. So there's a limited amount that Kerry can threaten.
But, you know, at the same time, when people see that the U.S. Secretary of State is actually going to say something and make the effort to go before cameras, in this particular instance, it didn't really seem like he said much at all.
No, I don't think he did.
Why bother?
Well, I don't know. I think he wants to be out there they're trying to deter Russia from taking any action, and they're doing it by vague threats. And, you know, like I say, the threats are limited. I think the main threat that prevents Russia, or may prevent Russia, we don't know what Russia's going to do, from going any further, would be the market. I mean, Russia lost $70 billion worth of investment. So the market is sometimes the best reiner in of errant countries.
Well, now that he has come out and said something, what do you think the reaction is going to be from the Russians? You know, we have this military buildup from all sides. There's a lot of escalation in this conflict. And then, you know, he comes out and doesn't really say a lot. So does that make the United States look weak?
Well, I think, you know, I think they're purposely not provoking Putin. And I think that's why it was somewhat of a vague, you know, statement on Kerry's part. But, you know, it does make the U.S. look kind of weak, because it staked out this territory, in fact, literal territory, by pushing NATO east when it said it wasn't going to promise Russia back in the Gorbachev first Bush days. And so we've pushed the alliance out there, and now we've got patrols out there, but we're terribly overextended as far as, we have the most powerful military in the world, but there's a tremendous territory to defend, the Baltics, Moldova, Ukraine, a lot of countries that are right on Russia's border. And Russia does want to ensure that it has a sphere of influence.
We have time for one last question, but so I want to get your reaction to this military buildup and these deaths that we've been hearing about from both Ukrainians pointing fingers and the Russians pointing fingers at the responsibility for the people who have died in this conflict the last day or so.
Well, the problem that the Ukrainian government has is it needs to control its territory, and it doesn't have control over its territory in eastern Ukraine. But if it does that, then they may kill Russians who are inhabiting these buildings. Then Putin has an excuse to go. So Putin has put them in a vice, as far as you know, putting them between a rock and a hard place. So, you know, these things, there may be a little fault on both sides. You know, whenever there's back and forth, we see that. But the problem is, I think this could be used as an excuse by the Russians to go further. And you know, you want to avoid provocations, but on the other hand, you want to deter Putin from doing this, because I think, you know, most of these areas are Russian-speaking, and they probably would want to be part of Russia, but this is not the way to do it, violating national sovereignty to go about it. I mean, if there was a free referendum in Crimea, as there was a referendum, but whether it was free or not, but even if there was, people probably would want to be part of Russia. Same with eastern Ukraine, same with parts of Moldova. but you just don't go in there and do that. But I think, like I said, I think the main restraint on Putin is actually the market. Russia can lose a lot of investment just by the market saying, wow, there's a lot of turbulence over there. We don't trust this guy.
All right, Ivan Eland, as always, we truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.